You were nobody when I found you. You'll be nobody when you leave. Those words echoed through the baby shower as 40 guests watched in frozen silence. Meredith stood there, 7 months pregnant, surrounded by crystal chandeliers and women in designer dresses. Her husband had just announced their divorce. In front of everyone, she knew. His mistress stood beside him, smirking. His mother stepped forward and said, "Finally, I told you, Preston. You married beneath us." Meredith's hands would not stop shaking. Her water glass slipped from her fingers. And in that moment, she believed them. She believed she was nobody. But here is what Preston Weston did not know. Here is what would destroy everything he thought he had won. The woman he had just humiliated? The waitress's daughter he called worthless? The pregnant wife he was throwing away like garbage? Her father was watching. From a corner office in Manhattan, a man named Douglas Harrington picked up his phone, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. "Move the acquisition timeline up," he said. "I want to own everything he has by Monday." Douglas Harrington, secret trillionaire, the man who had watched his daughter from the shadows for 27 years, the man who owned the very company where Preston worked. Preston had just made the biggest mistake of his life, and he had no idea the storm that was coming. This is the story of how a woman called Nobody became the most powerful person in the room, not because of money, not because of revenge, but because she finally discovered her own worth, the lesson. Here is the truth. This story wants you to remember. Your worth is never determined by those who cannot see it. The people who call you nobody are often the ones most afraid of who you might become. The meaning. This story is for every woman who has ever been made to feel small, for every mother who has rebuilt her life from ashes, for everyone who has survived betrayal and discovered they were stronger than they knew. Meredith's journey teaches us that starting over is not a punishment. It is a gift. The end of one chapter is simply the beginning of a better one. You do not need someone else to choose you. You can choose yourself every day, over and over. That is where real power comes from. The crystal punch bowl shattered against the marble floor. Mary's hand had not stopped shaking since Preston said those 5 words. "I want a divorce, Meredith." The words echoed in her skull like a bell that would not stop ringing. She stood frozen in the center of her own baby shower, surrounded by 40 guests who had come to celebrate the life growing inside her. 7 months pregnant, 40 witnesses, and her husband had just destroyed everything. The Weston family estate gleamed around her like a museum. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across cream-colored walls. Silver platters held petite fours that nobody was eating anymore. The string quartet in the corner had stopped playing mid-note. Even the servers stood motionless, trays suspended in the air like props in a photograph. Preston stood at the entrance of the grand parlor. His hand rested on the small of another woman's back, Sloane Fairfax. Mary recognized her from the company Christmas party, 29 years old, ambitious, beautiful in that sharp, hungry way that made other women nervous. "I've made a mistake," Preston continued, his voice carried across the silent room with the confidence of a man who had never been told no. "And I'm correcting it before the baby comes. Sloane and I are in love." Mary's mother-in-law stepped forward. Vivian Weston wore her usual expression of barely concealed disgust, but today something else flickered in her eyes. Satisfaction. "Finally," Vivian said. "I told you, Preston. You married beneath us." The baby kicked, hard, as if even her unborn daughter could feel the violence of this moment. Mary pressed her palm against her swollen belly. "This is not happening. Not here. Not with my baby listening to every word." She tried to speak, but her throat had closed around whatever words she might have found. "You should be grateful for the 3 years I gave you," Preston said. He adjusted his cufflinks, A casual gesture, the kind of thing he did when discussing quarterly reports or golf handicaps. You were nobody when I found you. You'll be nobody when you leave. Nobody. The word hit her like a physical blow. Sloane smirked. Her red lipstick caught the chandelier light. She looked at Mary the way someone might look at a stain on an otherwise perfect carpet. Mary's water glass slipped from her fingers. It did not shatter, like the punch bowl. It simply bounced against the Persian rug, spilling ice water across fabric that probably cost more than her mother's car. Her hands would not stop trembling. She locked her knees to keep from falling. She counted the seconds between breaths. 1, 2, 3. If she could just keep breathing, she could survive this moment. 4, 5, 6. A warm hand closed around her elbow. We're leaving. Bridget's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Her best friend since college. The one person in this room who had never belonged here and had never pretended otherwise. Now, Bridget guided Mary toward the door. 40 faces watched them pass. Some looked horrified. Others looked away. A few wore expressions that Mary would remember for years. The slight curve of lips quickly hidden. The raised eyebrows exchanged between women who had always suspected Meredith Callahan was not good enough for the Weston name. At the doorway, Bridget paused. She turned back to face Preston with the calm fury of a woman who had nothing to lose. Enjoy this moment, Bridget said. It's going to age poorly. Then they were outside. The September air hit Mary's face like cold water. Bridget's car waited in the circular driveway. A 10-year-old Honda among the Mercedes and BMWs. Mary made it to the passenger seat before the first sob broke. It came from somewhere deep in her chest, an animal sound, the kind of cry that had no dignity and no self-consciousness. Her entire body shook with it. Tears and snot and gasping breaths that she could not control. Bridget said nothing. She just drove. The Weston estate disappeared in the rearview mirror. The manicured lawns and iron gates and stone lions that Mary had once found so impressive. She had spent 3 years trying to belong in that world, 3 years learning which fork to use and which topics to avoid, and how to smile when Vivian made comments about her background. 3 years of making herself smaller. He planned this, Mary finally managed. Her voice came out raw and broken. The timing, the audience, he wanted witnesses. Bridget's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I know. Why would he do that? Why not just tell me at home? Why humiliate me in front of everyone? Because he's a monster, Bridget said. And monsters like audiences. Mary pressed her hand against her belly again. The baby had gone still, as if she too were in shock. I am not crazy. He wanted to humiliate me. That was the point. The realization settled into her bones like ice. This was not impulsive. This was not a man who had fallen in love and could not control himself. This was calculated cruelty, deliberate destruction. He had chosen the baby shower specifically because it would cause maximum damage. I'm taking you to the hospital, Bridget said, just to check on the baby. I'm fine. You're not fine, and that's okay. But we're going to make sure the baby is fine. Mary did not argue. She did not have the strength. She watched the city pass outside her window. The brownstones and coffee shops and couples walking dogs. Normal people living normal lives. 20 minutes ago, she had been one of them. A pregnant wife looking forward to meeting her daughter. Now she was something else entirely, a woman whose husband had called her nobody in front of everyone she knew. Somewhere across the city, in an office she had never seen, a man watched security footage of the baby shower on a screen. His jaw tightened as Preston Weston said those words. You were nobody when I found you. Douglas Harrington picked up his phone. Move the acquisition timeline up, he said. I want to own everything he has by Monday." Then he hung up and watched his daughter cry in a car driving away from the life she thought she knew. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and institutional coffee. Mary lay on a narrow bed in the observation unit, a fetal monitor wrapped around her belly. The baby's heartbeat filled the small room, steady, strong, alive. "Your blood pressure is elevated," the nurse said. She had kind eyes and gentle hands. "That's not unusual, given what you've described. We'll keep you here for observation." What you've described, as if the destruction of a marriage could be reduced to clinical notes in a chart. Bridget sat in the plastic chair beside the bed. She had not let go of Mary's hand since they arrived. "Is there anyone else we should call?" the nurse asked. "Family? The father?" Mary almost laughed. The father. Preston had made his position clear. "Not my concern anymore. Her mother is working," Bridget said. "We'll call her soon." The nurse nodded and left them alone with the sound of the baby's heartbeat. Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. 3 years, Mary whispered. "Was any of it real?" Bridget squeezed her hand. "I don't know, honey. I don't think he's capable of real." Mary stared at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. She remembered meeting Preston at a gallery opening where she worked as a designer. He had seemed so charming, so interested in her work, so different from the arrogant finance types she usually avoided. "You're refreshing," he had said. No pretense, no games. Now she understood what that meant. I was refreshing because I was easy to control. The baby kicked again, a small movement, a reminder that whatever else was happening, there was still a life depending on her, a daughter who needed her mother to be strong. Mary touched her belly and made a silent promise. "I do not know how yet, but I will figure this out. For you." The monitor beeped steadily. Outside the window, the city continued its indifferent rhythm, and somewhere in a mansion across town, Preston Weston was already moving on with his life. He did not know that the phone call Douglas Harrington had just made would change everything. He did not know that the woman he had called nobody was about to discover she was anything but. The hospital kept Mary overnight. She lay awake in the narrow bed, listening to the sounds of the ward around her, machines beeping, nurses walking. Somewhere down the hall, a woman in labor crying out. The ordinary music of a place where lives began and ended, and everything in between. The baby's heartbeat had stabilized. The doctor said the contractions were stress-induced, but not dangerous. Yet. The word hung in the air like a warning. Bridget had fallen asleep in the chair, her neck bent at an uncomfortable angle. She had refused to leave. That's what real loyalty looks like, Mary thought. Not fancy words at baby showers, just showing up when everything falls apart. Mary picked up her phone for the first time since the car. 47 text messages, most from numbers she barely recognized. Women from Preston's social circle, who had never bothered to text her before. Now they wanted details, gossip, entertainment. She deleted them all without reading. One message remained. From Preston. "The movers will pack your personal items. You have 72 hours to vacate the penthouse." No greeting, no explanation, no acknowledgement that she was carrying his child and currently in a hospital because of him. Just a deadline delivered with the warmth of a property management notice. Mary's thumb hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to respond, to rage, to beg, to say something that would make him understand what he had done. Instead, she typed, "I am in the hospital. The baby..." 3 dots appeared. He was typing. "Not my concern anymore. My lawyer will be in touch about custody. I am sure we can come to an arrangement." Then nothing. Mary stared at the screen, at the photo still set as her wallpaper. Preston and her at their wedding, his arm around her waist, his smile bright and confident, the same smile he had worn while destroying her in front of 40 people. She had loved that smile once. Now she saw it for what it was. The smile of a man who had never seen her as a person, just a prop in the story he was telling about himself. The phone slipped from her fingers. She did not cry this time. She had run out of tears. There was just a hollow space in her chest where something vital used to be. Morning came gray and indifferent. The doctor cleared Marie for discharge with instructions to reduce stress. The irony was not lost on anyone. Bridget drove her away from the hospital and toward a future neither of them could imagine. The city passed in a blur of traffic and pedestrians and life moving forward without her. "Where do you want to go?" Bridget asked. Mary did not have an answer. The penthouse was no longer hers. She could not face her mother yet. She did not have the words to explain what had happened. "I need to think," she said. "Just drive." They ended up at a diner in Brooklyn, the kind of place with sticky vinyl booths and coffee that had been sitting too long. Mary ordered pancakes she would not eat and watched the syrup pool on her plate. "We need to talk about practical things," Bridget said gently. "I know it's the last thing you want to think about, but you have 72 hours. "I know. Do you have somewhere to go?" "My mom's apartment. It's small, but she'll make room." "Money?" Mary shook her head. "Preston handled everything. He gave me a household allowance. The credit cards are joint. He's probably already canceled them. Savings? I don't even know the passwords." Bridget's expression tightened. She was a nurse. She had seen this before. Women who came into the emergency room with bruises they could not explain and nowhere to go. Financial control was its own kind of violence. "What about the prenup?" Bridget asked. "Do you have a copy?" Mary reached into her bag. She had grabbed it when packing for the baby shower, an impulse she did not understand at the time. Now it seemed prophetic. They spread the document across the sticky table. Mary had signed it 3 years ago without really reading it. Preston's family attorney had explained everything so patiently, so reassuringly. Standard protections, he had said, nothing to worry about. Now, with Bridget's sharp eyes scanning the pages, the truth emerged. "This is insane," Bridget said. "If you file for divorce, you get nothing. If he files, you get $30,000 total. That's it." "What?" "There's more. If you earn more than him within 10 years of the divorce, you have to pay him the difference." Mary laughed, a bitter sound. "I make $40,000 a year. He makes 10 times that." "Exactly. Which means the clause could never be invoked. Unless—" Bridget paused. "Unless you inherited something, or won the lottery, or somehow came into money. My mother is a waitress. My father left when I was 3. I have never gotten anything from anyone." Bridget set down the papers. Her face was pale. "Mary, this isn't a prenup, it's a trap. He set this up before you ever walked down the aisle. The exit was always built in. He planned for this from the beginning. The exit was always built in." The words settled into Mary's chest like stones. She thought about their courtship, the flowers, the romantic dinners, the way Preston had seemed so fascinated by her ordinary life. She had thought he loved her simplicity, her lack of pretense. Now she understood. He loved that she had nothing. He loved that she needed him. He loved that she would never be able to leave. "I need to get my things from the penthouse," Mary said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, flat, distant. "Before he changes the locks." "I'll come with you." "No, this is something I need to do alone." Bridget did not argue. She understood that some battles had to be fought without witnesses. The penthouse looked different now. Mary stood in the foyer of the apartment she had called home for 3 years. The same furniture, the same art on the walls, the same view of Central Park that had once made her feel like the luckiest woman in the world. But everything had changed. The security guard had given her 2 hours instead of 72. New orders from Mr. Weston. She did not have time to be systematic. She could only grab what mattered. She started with her clothes, not the designer dresses Preston had bought her, not the jewelry he had given her. For anniversaries, she now realized meant nothing. Just the things that were hers before she met him, jeans and sweaters and the leather jacket her mother had given her for her 21st birthday. Next, her art supplies, the sketchbooks filled with drawings no one else had ever seen. The pastels and charcoals she had barely touched in 3 years because Preston thought art was a hobby, not a calling. Finally, the baby things. The first onesie she had bought when the pregnancy test came back positive, before she told Preston, before everything became about his expectations and his family's opinions. Just a tiny piece of clothing in soft yellow cotton that represented pure hope. It all fit in 2 suitcases. 3 years of marriage. And it fits in 2 suitcases. Mary sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the room. The closet was still full of Preston's things, his tailored suits and Italian shoes and the collection of watches that cost more than her mother made in a year. She could destroy them. The thought flickered through her mind like lightning. She could cut the suits to ribbons, throw the watches out the window, leave evidence of her rage that he would have to clean up. But that was not who she was. She was not the kind of woman who destroyed things. She was the kind of woman who built things, who created beauty out of nothing, who loved even when love was not returned. Maybe that was her problem. She stood to leave and noticed a folder on Preston's desk. It was marked with her name, Meredith Callahan, not Meredith Weston, her maiden name, the name she had stopped using when she married him. She opened it. Inside was a private investigator's report dated 3 months before their wedding. Her entire life laid out in cold, clinical detail. Her mother's address, her student loan debt, her father's abandonment, her salary at the gallery, her complete lack of connections or family money. And in Preston's handwriting, circled 3 times, no family money, no connections. Mother is a waitress, father unknown/absent. Perfect. Perfect. He had chosen her because she had nothing, because she was vulnerable, because she would be grateful for whatever crumbs he offered. Mary's hands shook. But this time, it was not fear or sadness making them tremble. It was rage. Pure, clean, clarifying rage. She took the folder with her. Evidence, proof of what he had done, what he had always planned to do. On her way out, she passed through the living room, the room where they had hosted dinner parties and pretended to be happy, where she had smiled until her face hurt and agreed with every opinion Preston's mother expressed. On the mantel sat their wedding photo in a silver frame. Mary picked it up, studied the woman in the white dress. That woman had believed in fairy tales, in love conquering all, in the basic decency of the man standing beside her. That woman was gone now. Mary set the photo face down on the mantel and walked out of the apartment without looking back. Her mother's place was small. Kate Callahan had lived in the same Brooklyn apartment for 20 years. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that could barely fit 2 people at the same time. The walls were covered with photographs of Mary at every age, baby pictures and school plays and the art school graduation that Kate had worked double shifts to help pay for. Kate opened the door before Mary could knock. "I saw on the news," Kate said. "The society pages." She pulled her daughter into her arms. Mary breathed in the familiar scent of her mother's perfume, lavender and soap, and something that smelled like home. "I'm so sorry, baby girl," Kate whispered. "I'm so sorry." They stood in the doorway for a long time, mother and daughter, the way they had been before Preston, before everything changed. Finally, Kate led Mary inside. She made tea, the ritual of it, the familiar clink of cups, the smell of chamomile, the same way she had handled every crisis of Mary's childhood. "Tell me everything," Kate said. So Mary did. The baby shower, the humiliation, the prenup, the investigator's report, all of it poured out in a flood of words and tears and exhaustion. Kate listened without interrupting. When Mary finished, her mother's face was pale but composed. "What do you need?" Kate asked. "I don't know. A place to stay. Time to figure out what comes next." "You have both? For as long as you need." Mary looked around the apartment, at the African violets on the windowsill, the same couch from her childhood, the tiny room that would have to become a nursery somehow. This was where she had started, and apparently, this was where she would start again. "I failed," Mary whispered. "I thought I was building a life, a family, and it was all a lie." Kate took her daughter's hands. "You didn't fail. You trusted someone who wasn't worthy of trust." "That's not the same thing." "It feels the same." "I know, baby, but it's not." Mary slept on the couch that night. The same couch where she had read books as a child and done homework as a teenager and cried over her first heartbreak. The lumps were familiar. The sounds of the building settling around her were familiar. Everything was familiar except the woman she had become. She dreamed of Preston saying nobody. The word echoed and multiplied until it was a chorus. Nobody, nobody, nobody. She woke at 3 a.m. Her old bedroom was dark. Her high school art projects still hung on the walls, paintings and drawings from a time when she believed anything was possible, when she thought talent and hard work would be enough to build the life she wanted. She touched her belly. The baby moved, a slow roll that felt like a question. "I'm so sorry, little one," Mary whispered. "You deserved better than this." The baby kicked, hard. Like a response, like a declaration, Mary sat up. She opened her laptop and typed into the search bar, "Divorce pregnant, no money options." The blue light of the screen was the only brightness in the room. She scrolled through results: legal aid clinics, women's shelters, support groups for mothers starting over. Resources she had never imagined she would need. "I will figure this out. Women do this every day. I can do this." She started making a list: places to call in the morning, documents she would need, steps toward a future she could not yet imagine. It was small. It was terrifying. But it was a start. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. A text message. "Do not sign anything. Help is coming." Mary stared at the screen. "Who knows I am here? Who would send this?" In the darkness of her childhood bedroom, surrounded by memories of who she used to be, Mary felt the first stirring of something she had not expected. Curiosity. Monday morning arrived without ceremony. Mary woke to the sound of her mother making coffee in the tiny kitchen. The smell drifted through the apartment like a promise. For a moment, suspended between sleep and waking, she forgot everything. She was just a woman in her childhood home, safe and warm and loved. Then memory crashed back. Preston, the divorce, the baby shower, with 40 witnesses, the word nobody branded into her consciousness. She sat up slowly. Her back ached from the couch. Her eyes felt swollen from crying. The baby shifted inside her, a reminder that whatever else was happening, life continued. "I made you toast," Kate said from the kitchen doorway. "You need to eat." Mary did not feel hungry, but she ate anyway. Her daughter needed nutrients even if her mother had lost her appetite. Each bite was an act of will. "I called in sick to work," Kate said. She set a cup of tea beside Mary's plate. "I thought we could go through some things together, figure out the next steps. Mom, you can't afford to miss shifts. I can afford to be here for my daughter." There was no arguing with Kate Callahan when she made up her mind. Mary had learned that lesson decades ago. They spent the morning sorting through paperwork. The prenup, the bank statements Mary had managed to print before Preston cut off her access. The investigator's report that proved he had planned this from the beginning. "You need a lawyer," Kate said. "A real one, not someone who works for his family." "I can't afford a lawyer. There has to be legal aid, pro bono services, something." Mary nodded. She added it to the list that was growing longer by the hour. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Help is coming. Trust the process." "Who keeps sending you messages?" Kate asked. "I don't know. Someone who claims to want to help." Kate's face changed. Something flickered across her expression that Mary could not identify. Fear? Recognition? It was gone before she could be sure. "What?" Mary asked. "Mom, what is it?" "Nothing. I worry about you, about both of you." She touched Mary's belly. The baby kicked against her grandmother's palm. Kate's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. "Whatever happens," Kate said, "you're not alone. You never were." Across the city, in a boardroom that cost more than most houses, Douglas Harrington stood at the head of a polished mahogany table. 12 men in expensive suits stared at him, the board of directors of Harrington Global Industries. They had not seen the company founder in years. Douglas preferred to operate from the shadows, letting others take credit while he pulled strings from a distance. But not today. Today he had emerged from hiding. And he was angry. "Gentlemen," Douglas said. His voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that made powerful men lean forward to listen. "As of 9 this morning, Harrington Holdings has acquired majority stake in Weston Enterprises." Murmurs rippled around the table. Weston Enterprises was a mid-sized financial firm, respectable but unremarkable. Why would Douglas Harrington care about such a minor acquisition? "Additionally," Douglas continued, "I have personally purchased the outstanding shares of Harrington Global from our silent investors. Effective immediately, I own this company outright." The murmurs became gasps. "There will be changes," Douglas said. "Starting with personnel. I want a complete review of every executive's performance, every expense report, every client relationship. Nothing is off limits." Raymond Holt, the longest-serving board member, cleared his throat. "May I ask what prompted this return to active leadership?" Douglas looked at him. His eyes were cold. "Let's just say I've been reminded what matters." The meeting ended. The board members filed out, exchanging worried glances. They did not know what had changed. They only knew that the man who had built an empire was back. And he was not happy. Theo Ashworth remained behind. Douglas's attorney, his closest confidant, the keeper of secrets that could topple governments. "The girl doesn't know yet," Theo said, "about any of it." "I know. Her mother has kept the secret for 27 years. She won't break now. She might have to." Theo studied his employer. Douglas Harrington was worth more than most countries. He could buy and sell entire industries on a whim, but right now, standing by the window of his corner office, he looked like something else entirely, a father. "What's your plan?" Theo asked. "Preston Weston called my daughter nobody." Douglas's voice was soft, dangerous. He humiliated her at her own baby shower. He's carrying on an affair with a junior executive and billing it to the company as entertainment expenses. So you want him destroyed. I want him to understand what he did, who he did it to, and what it's going to cost him." Theo nodded. He had worked for Douglas for 20 years. He had seen him negotiate billion-dollar deals without raising his voice. But this was different. This was personal. "There's something else," Douglas said. "I want to see her, my daughter, my grandchild." "That's not your decision to make." "I know, But I've waited 27 years. I've watched from the shadows while she grew up and fell in love and married a man who didn't deserve her. I'm done waiting. And if she doesn't want to see you? Douglas did not answer. He just stared out the window at the city that belonged to him, thinking about the woman who had no idea she was heir to an empire. Mary took a taxi back to her mother's building. She had spent the afternoon at a legal aid clinic, waiting for 3 hours to speak with an overworked attorney for 15 minutes. The attorney had reviewed the prenup with growing concern. "This is predatory," she said, "but it may still be enforceable. You need to find a family law specialist, someone who can challenge the terms." "I can't afford a specialist." "Then find one who will work on contingency. Given the circumstances, you might have grounds for significant support." It was not much, but it was something. Mary climbed the stairs to her mother's apartment. The elevator had been broken since she was 12. Some things never changed. She was halfway up when her phone buzzed again. The unknown number. $20 million has been deposited in an account in your name. Your father sends his regards. Mary stopped on the landing, read the message again and again. $20 million. Your father. This had to be a scam. Some cruel joke from one of Preston's friends, a new way to torment her. But the message included a link to a bank account, her name on the profile, her social security number, a balance that looked like a phone number. $20 million. Mary's legs went weak. She sat down on the stairs and stared at her phone until the screen went dark. When she finally made it to the apartment, Kate was waiting. "Mom," Mary said. Her voice was shaking. "I need you to tell me the truth about my father." Kate's face went pale. For a long moment, she did not speak. Then she said the words that changed everything. "Meredith, baby, there's something I should have told you a long time ago." They sat at the kitchen table, mother and daughter, the same table where Mary had eaten countless meals and done countless homework assignments and learned countless life lessons. But she had never learned this. "Your father's name is Douglas Harrington," Kate said. "He's one of the wealthiest men in the world," Mary laughed. It was not a humorous sound. "That's impossible. You're a waitress? We grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment. We had to save for months to afford new shoes." "I know how it sounds, but it's true." Kate took a deep breath. The kind of breath that comes before confessing something that has been hidden for decades. "I met Douglas when I was 22. I was working at a restaurant near Wall Street. He came in every day for coffee. We started talking. And then, more than talking." "He was married?" "No, never. He was just consumed by work, building his company, making enemies." Kate's voice dropped. "When I got pregnant, everything changed." "What do you mean?" "His enemies found out about me, about you. There were threats, specific ones, against the baby." Mary's hand went to her belly. The baby kicked. "Douglas gave me a choice," Kate continued. "Disappear with you and receive monthly support, or stay and risk everything. He had security, investigators, plans to keep us safe. But he couldn't guarantee anything. So you chose to run. I chose you. Your safety, your chance at a normal life. And he just let us go?" Kate shook her head. Tears were streaming down her cheeks now. "He never let us go. He watched. He helped from a distance." "Your scholarship to art school?" "Douglas. The loan that helped me buy this apartment?" "Douglas. Every time something good happened to you, something lucky, it wasn't luck." Mary sat very still. The kitchen felt too small, the walls too close. "Everything I thought I knew is a lie. My father abandoned me." "Except he did not. My marriage was real. Except it was not." "Why didn't you tell me?" Mary asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I was protecting you." The threats were real, Meredith, at least at first. And then so much time had passed. How do you explain something like this? You find the words. You tell the truth. I tried, so many times, but you seemed happy. You had Preston, a family. I didn't want to ruin that. Mary stood. She walked to the window and looked out at the city. Her whole life was built on secrets, her father hiding in the shadows, her mother keeping truths locked away, and her husband who had never loved her at all. Who am I if everything I believed was wrong? He wants to see you, Kate said. Douglas, he's asking. Mary did not turn around. No. Meredith, I said no. I don't want his money. I don't want anything from a man who watched my life from the shadows for 30 years and never said hello. She grabbed her coat and walked out of the apartment. Kate did not follow. There was nothing left to say. Mary walked the city for hours. She passed through neighborhoods she knew and neighborhoods she did not. She walked until her feet ached and her back protested and the baby shifted restlessly in her womb. She ended up at a small park she remembered from childhood, a place where Kate used to take her on Sunday afternoons. They would sit on this exact bench and eat ice cream and watch the other families. Now Mary sat alone, 8 months pregnant, no husband, no home, no idea who she really was. Her phone buzzed again, a text from the unknown number. He never stopped loving you. He never stopped watching. Give him a chance. Mary stared at the message. Then she turned off her phone and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and orange and pink. Somewhere out there was a father she had never known, a fortune she had never asked for, a truth that changed everything. But right now, in this moment, she was just a woman on a park bench, trying to figure out what came next. The next morning, Mary went back to the penthouse. Not because she wanted to. She had already taken everything that mattered, but the building manager had called about forwarding her mail. Apparently, there were packages that needed to be claimed. The doorman would not meet her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Weston," he said. "About everything." Mary did not correct him about the name. She would not be Mrs. Weston much longer. The penthouse was empty. Preston had already moved most of his things. The closets were bare. The surfaces were clean. It looked like a showroom instead of a home. The mail was stacked on the kitchen counter. Bills, advertisements, a letter from Preston's lawyer. She opened it with shaking hands. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. Settlement offered, $30,000. Custody arrangement, pending evaluation. Custody arrangement. He wanted to take her daughter. The man who had called her baby nobody. The man who had shown no interest in being a father. He wanted custody. Mary sat down on the cold marble floor and tried to breathe. The baby kicked. Once, twice, 3 times, as if she were fighting too. "I won't let him take you," Mary whispered. "Whatever it takes. He won't take you." She heard the front door open. Vivian Weston walked in like she owned the place, which, in a sense, she did. The penthouse belonged to the Weston Family Trust. Mary had always been a guest here. "I came to make sure you don't take anything that isn't yours," Vivian said. Her voice was clipped, cold. "I'm just picking up my mail. See that you don't take anything else. Preston's lawyers have documented every item in this apartment." Mary stood slowly. Her legs felt unsteady, but she forced herself to straighten her spine. "I'm taking my clothes," she said, "and my art supplies." Vivian laughed. It was not a kind sound. "The art supplies stay. Preston paid for them." "He didn't. I bought them with money I earned." "Earned." Vivian's lip curled. "Dear, the only thing you ever earned was a ring you didn't deserve." The familiar urge rose in Mary's chest. The urge to apologize, to smooth things over. to make herself smaller so this moment would end. She opened her mouth, then she closed it. No, I am taking what is mine. I'm taking the art supplies, Mary said. Her voice was steady now. And the clothes I brought into this marriage, and every piece of documentation that proves what kind of man your son really is. Vivian's face went red. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Actually, I'm starting to figure that out. Mary picked up the box of art supplies, her sketchbooks, her pastels, her charcoals, the tools she had barely touched in 3 years because Preston always found her art embarrassing. This isn't over, Vivian said. No, it's not. Mary walked out of the penthouse for the last time. She did not look back. The law office of Margaret Sullivan was not what Mary expected. She had imagined something sleek and intimidating, glass walls and leather chairs and assistants in designer suits. Instead, she found a modest suite in a Brooklyn walk-up, exposed brick walls, plants everywhere, a golden retriever sleeping under the receptionist's desk. Margaret herself was a surprise, too. Early 40s, gray streaking her dark hair, reading glasses pushed up on her head. She looked more like a librarian than a litigator. Mrs. Weston, Margaret said, please sit down. Actually, I'd prefer Callahan. My maiden name. Margaret smiled. It reached her eyes. Good for you. Now, tell me everything. Mary did. The courtship, the wedding, the prenup she signed without really understanding, the baby shower, the humiliation, the investigator's report that proved Preston had planned this from the beginning. Margaret listened without interrupting. She took notes on a yellow legal pad. When Mary finished, she set down her pen and leaned forward. Miss Callahan, this prenup, who was your attorney when you signed this? Preston's family attorney helped me understand it. He said it was standard. Margaret's expression tightened. This isn't standard. This is a trap. There are provisions here that would require you to pay him if you earn more than him in the next 10 years. That's impossible. He makes 10 times what I make. Exactly. Which means technically, it could never be invoked. Unless... Margaret paused. Did you ever inherit anything? My father left when I was 3. I've never gotten anything from anyone. Something flickered across Margaret's face. Recognition? Understanding? It was gone before Mary could identify it. I need to ask you some hard questions, Margaret said. Do you have any savings? Preston handled the money. He gave me a household allowance. Credit cards in your name? They're joint. He canceled them yesterday. Any property? Nothing. Margaret leaned forward. Her voice was gentle but firm. Miss Callahan, I need you to understand something. What he did, controlling your finances, isolating you from friends and family, this prenup, this is financial abuse. You did nothing wrong. Mary's voice cracked. Then why do I feel so stupid? Because abusers are good at making you feel that way. They're experts at it. They choose their victims carefully. They build traps slowly. And then when the trap springs shut, they make you believe it was your fault all along. Tears streamed down Mary's face. She did not try to stop them. He chose me because I had nothing, she whispered. Because I was vulnerable. Yes, and that's not your fault. It's his crime. They sat in silence for a moment. The golden retriever wandered over and rested his head on Mary's knee. She stroked his soft fur and tried to breathe. What do I do now? She asked. Now we fight. This prenup may be technically enforceable, but there are ways to challenge it. Fraud, coercion, lack of independent counsel. We're going to examine every angle. I can't afford a long legal battle. Let me worry about that. I've taken on cases like this before. Sometimes justice is more important than billable hours. Mary looked at this woman she had just met. This lawyer in a Brooklyn walk-up, with plants, and a golden retriever and reading glasses pushed up on her head. "Why would you help me?" Margaret smiled again, that same warm smile that reached her eyes. "Because everyone deserves someone in their corner. And because men like Preston Weston have been getting away with this for far too long." The walk home was long. Mary could have taken a taxi. She could have called Bridget for a ride. But she needed the time, the space, the rhythm of her feet on the pavement. She passed the cafe where Preston had proposed, the gallery where they met, the jewelry store where he bought her engagement ring. Each landmark was a memory now poisoned. She thought about the woman she had been 3 years ago, the woman who believed in love at first sight, who thought a rich, handsome man choosing her meant she was special, who ignored every red flag because she wanted so badly to believe. That woman was gone. Good riddance. Mary sat on a bench in Central Park. The autumn leaves were turning, gold and orange and deep crimson, beautiful and dying at the same time. A woman walked past pushing a stroller. The baby inside was sleeping, peaceful, unaware of the complicated world waiting for her. Mary touched her own belly. Soon she would be pushing a stroller too, walking through this park with a daughter who depended on her for everything. The weight of that responsibility settled onto her shoulders, not crushing, not anymore, just present, real. I can do this. I have to do this. There is no other choice. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Your father sends a car tomorrow morning. Whenever you are ready. No pressure, no expectations, just an open door." Mary stared at the message. She thought about the man who had watched her from the shadows for 27 years, who had funded her scholarship and her mother's apartment and countless other small miracles she had never questioned. She thought about his money, $20 million, sitting in an account with her name. She thought about what it would mean to meet him, to face the father she had always believed abandoned her, to learn the truth about who she really was. She was not ready, but maybe she never would be. Maybe ready was something you became only by doing the thing you were afraid of. She typed a reply. "Tomorrow, 10 in the morning, send the address." Then she turned off her phone and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades she would later try to capture on canvas. The colors of ending, the colors of beginning. The black car arrived exactly at 10. Mary watched it pull up to her mother's building from the window, sleek, expensive, the kind of car that looked out of place on this Brooklyn street of walk-ups and corner bodegas. "You don't have to do this," Kate said. She stood in the kitchen doorway, wringing her hands. "If you're not ready, I'll never be ready, so it might as well be now." Mary grabbed her bag, the same bag she had carried out of the penthouse. Everything she owned fit inside it. $20 million in a bank account, and she was still carrying her life in a single bag. "I'm coming with you," Kate said. "No, this is something I need to do alone." Kate's eyes filled with tears, the same eyes Mary saw in the mirror every morning. "I'm sorry," Kate whispered, "for all of it, for keeping secrets, for making choices I thought would protect you." Mary hugged her mother, felt the familiar softness, breathed in the familiar scent. "I know, Mom. I know." She walked downstairs. The driver was waiting by the open car door. A man in a gray suit with an earpiece, like something out of a movie about presidents or pop stars. "Miss Callahan?" he said. "Yes. Your father is waiting." Your father. The word still felt strange, like a language she did not speak. The drive took them into Manhattan, past the glittering towers of Midtown, past the park where she had sat just yesterday, past the building where Preston was probably celebrating his freedom with Sloane. Finally, the car stopped in front of a brownstone. Not a skyscraper, not a mansion, just a brownstone on a quiet street in a neighborhood that looked almost normal. "This is it?" Mary asked. "Mr. Harrington values his privacy." She got out of the car and stood on the sidewalk. The brownstone had a blue door with brass fittings, window boxes with late-season flowers. It looked like the kind of place where professors or writers might live, not trillionaires. The door opened before she could knock. A man stood in the doorway, late 50s, distinguished, gray hair, tired eyes that looked startlingly familiar. Her eyes. Meredith, he said, her name in his voice, soft, almost reverent. You came. I came for answers, not a reunion. Douglas Harrington nodded slowly. Fair enough, please. Come in. The inside of the brownstone was surprisingly modest. Warm wood floors, comfortable furniture, books everywhere. It felt like a home, not a showroom. But one thing caught Mary's attention immediately. The walls were covered with photographs. Not art, not awards, photographs of her. Mary at 5, missing her front teeth. Mary at 12, holding a painting she had made in art class. Mary at 18, graduating from high school. Mary at 23, accepting her college diploma. Mary at 27, in a white wedding dress on what should have been the happiest day of her life. In that last photo, Douglas's face was captured in the crowd, grim, disapproving, watching from the back row of a ceremony she had not known he attended. You were at my wedding, Mary said. I've been at everything, every school play, every gallery showing, every milestone. Watching. Yes. Never speaking. Douglas's jaw tightened. I've practiced what I would say to you 1,000 times, and now you're here, and I have no words. Mary walked closer to the wall of photographs, touched the frame of one she remembered. Her first art show. She was 20, standing nervously beside a painting that no one had bought. I sold that painting, she said. A week after the show, anonymous buyer. I thought it was luck. It wasn't luck. It was you. It was always me. Mary turned to face him. This stranger who was also her father. This man who had everything and had chosen to watch from the shadows while she struggled and loved and failed and tried again. Why? She asked. That's all I want to know? Why? Douglas gestured to a chair. Sit down, please. This is a long story. They sat across from each other, father and daughter. 27 years of silence between them. Douglas began. He told her about building his empire in his 20s, about making enemies who played for keeps, about corporate rivals and foreign investors, and people who thought nothing of threatening a child to gain leverage. He told her about Kate, the waitress with the warm smile who made him feel normal for the first time in years, about falling in love, about the pregnancy that changed everything. He told her about the threats, specific, credible, detailed, names and dates and addresses, a file on her mother, a file on the unborn baby. They made it clear, Douglas said. If I stayed connected to you, they would hurt you, not me, you. The only way to keep you safe was to disappear. So you just left. I gave your mother a choice. I would have protected you both if she stayed. Security, safe houses, the whole apparatus, but Kate chose differently. She chose a normal life for me. She chose safety, and I respected that choice, even though it destroyed me. Mary thought about her childhood, the small apartment, the used clothes, the public schools, normal, ordinary, safe. You could have come back, she said. The danger couldn't have lasted 30 years. Douglas's face twisted with something that looked like shame. You're right. After a while, it wasn't about safety anymore. It was cowardice. I didn't know how to face you. How to explain? I had missed so much. Birthdays, graduations, the moments that matter. How do you apologize for missing someone's entire childhood? You find the words. You try. I know I should have. Every day I wake up knowing I should have. Mary stood. She walked to the window and looked out at the street below. Normal people, walking normal dogs, past normal houses. You funded my scholarship, she said. My first apartment, my gallery showing, yes. But not my self-worth, Douglas did not respond. You watched me marry a man who belittled me, Mary continued, who controlled me, who made me feel like nothing, and you said nothing. I wanted to. Believe me. But I thought you loved him. I did love him, and he destroyed me. Silence filled the room, the kind of silence that has weight. I know, Douglas finally said. That's why I bought his company. Mary turned. What? As of Monday morning, I own Harrington Global Industries outright. Preston Weston's entire career is built on a company I control. Mary stared at her father, at this man who could destroy empires with a phone call. You bought the company because of me. I was already the silent majority shareholder. I stepped out of the shadows because of you, because of my grandchild. Because Preston Weston looked at my daughter, my brilliant, talented, kind-hearted daughter, and called her nobody. His voice broke on the last word. Nobody. The word that had haunted her since the baby shower. He doesn't know, Douglas said. He has no idea who you are, what you're worth. He thinks he won. He did win. Not yet, and not if I have anything to say about it. Douglas stood. He walked to his desk and pulled out a folder. I want to destroy him, but that's not my choice to make. It's yours. He handed her the folder. Inside were documents, financial records, employment reviews, expense reports. Preston has been stealing from the company for years, Douglas said, padding his expense account, taking credit for other people's work, having an affair with a junior executive and billing it to clients. Mary looked at the evidence, page after page of fraud and deception. I can take everything from him, Douglas said. His job, his reputation, his social standing. I can make sure he never works in finance again. And if I say no, then I do nothing. I let him walk away. I watch him marry his mistress and live out his life pretending he's a good man. Mary set down the folder. Why would you leave this to me? Why not just destroy him? Because this isn't my battle. It's yours. And because I've spent 27 years making decisions about your life without your input. I'm done doing that. Mary walked back to the window. The sun was setting now, orange light painting the buildings across the street. She thought about Preston, about the smirk on his face when he announced the divorce, about Vivian's satisfaction, about Sloane's red lipstick catching the light. She thought about revenge, how sweet it would taste, how satisfying it would be to watch him lose everything. Then she thought about her daughter, about the kind of mother she wanted to be, the example she wanted to set. I don't want revenge, she said. Douglas said nothing. I want freedom. I want to build a life that's mine. I want my daughter to know her worth isn't measured by her father's money or her mother's anger. And Preston? Let him face the consequences of his own choices. If he's stealing, let the company prosecute him. If he's a fraud, let the truth come out. But not because of me, because that's what he deserves. Douglas's eyes filled with tears. He wiped them away quickly, a gesture that reminded Mary of her mother. You sound just like your grandmother, he said. She was the strongest person I ever knew, until now. Mary turned from the window. She looked at this man, who was her father, this stranger who had loved her from a distance for almost 3 decades. I'm not ready to forgive you, she said. Not yet, maybe not ever. I understand, but I'm also not ready to walk away. Not completely. Douglas nodded slowly. The hope in his eyes was almost unbearable. Take all the time you need. I've waited 27 years. I can wait longer. Mary picked up her bag. The money in that account, I don't want it. It's yours whether you want it or not. Your inheritance. Your grandmother left it to you when she died. My grandmother. She never stopped asking about you. Every week until the day she died, she loved you without ever meeting you. Another truth Mary had not known, another piece of a family she was only beginning to understand. I need to go, she said. Douglas did not try to stop her. He walked her to the door and stood watching as she climbed into the waiting car. Meredith, he called. She turned. Whatever you decide, whatever happens, I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. The car door closed. The driver pulled away from the brownstone with the blue door. And Mary sat in the back seat, trying to process everything she had just learned. Her father was a trillionaire. Her grandmother had loved her. Her husband was about to discover that the woman he had called nobody was anything but. The contractions started at midnight. Mary was alone in her childhood bedroom when the first wave of pain hit. Sharp, intense, too early. She was only 8 months pregnant. The baby wasn't due for 4 more weeks. "Mom!" she called. Kate appeared in the doorway, already pulling on a sweater. "Hospital, now!" The taxi ride was a blur of red lights and honking horns, and Mary breathing through contractions that came faster than they should. Kate held her hand. The driver ran 3 yellow lights and asked no questions. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Nurses rushed Mary into a room. Monitors were attached, blood pressure checked. The baby's heartbeat filled the small space like a drumbeat. "False labor," the doctor said after the examination. "Braxton Hicks contractions intensified by stress. The baby is fine, but we want to keep you overnight for observation. False labor, not real. Just her body responding to everything that had happened." Kate went home at the doctor's insistence. Visiting hours were over, and there was nothing she could do but worry. "I'll be back first thing in the morning," Kate said. She kissed Mary's forehead. "Try to sleep." But Mary couldn't sleep. She lay in the hospital bed, listening to the sounds of the ward. Machines beeping, nurses talking in low voices. Somewhere down the hall, someone was crying. The baby shifted inside her, a slow roll, a reminder that she wasn't alone, even when she felt completely isolated. My mother lied. My husband lied. My entire life is a lie, and I'm about to bring a child into this mess. Tears slid down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. There was no one to see. A nurse came to check her vitals. Kind eyes, gentle hands. "Is there anyone we can call?" the nurse asked. "Family? The father?" The father. Mary thought about Preston, about his message saying the baby wasn't his concern, about the divorce papers with their custody arrangement pending evaluation. She thought about Douglas, about his brownstone full of photographs, and his empire built on secrets. She thought about Kate, about 27 years of lies told in the name of protection. "No," Mary whispered, "there's no one." The nurse nodded sympathetically and left her alone. Mary stared at the ceiling. White tiles, fluorescent lights, the same view thousands of women had seen while lying in this bed, facing their own private terrors. She touched her belly. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the baby. "I'm sorry I can't give you a father who loves you. I'm sorry I brought you into a family built on lies. I'm sorry I'm not stronger." The baby kicked, hard, like a response, like a refusal so to accept apologies. Something shifted in Mary's chest. She thought about the woman she had been, the woman who needed Preston's approval to feel worthy, the woman who made herself smaller to fit into his world, the woman who had forgotten how to want things for herself. That woman would have stayed in the hospital bed, crying and helpless. That woman was dead. I will not let my daughter grow up believing she was unwanted. Whatever else is true, this baby will know she was chosen. Mary reached for her phone. Her fingers were steady now. She dialed Margaret Sullivan. "It's Mary Callahan. I'm ready to fight. Whatever it takes." Then she dialed her mother. "Tell Douglas I'll meet him again. But this time, I want the whole truth, all of it. No more shadows." She hung up the phone and lay back against the pillows. The baby had stopped kicking. Sleeping, maybe. Resting before whatever came next. Outside the window, the city was waking up. First light painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. First coffee brewing in apartments across the borough. First steps taken by people who had no idea what this day would bring. Today, Mary decided, I start over. Morning came slowly. Mary dozed between vital checks and blood pressure readings. The contractions had stopped completely. The doctor declared her stable and scheduled a discharge for noon. At 11:15, there was a knock on the door. Douglas Harrington stood in the doorway. He looked smaller, somehow, than he had in his brownstone. More vulnerable. More like an ordinary man, and less like a figure from myth. "May I come in?" he asked. Mary nodded. Douglas sat in the plastic chair beside her bed. The same chair Bridget had occupied days ago. The same chair where her mother had held her hand and promised everything would be okay. "Kate called me," Douglas said. "She told me you were here." "False labor. The baby's fine. And you?" Mary didn't answer. She didn't know how. Douglas leaned forward. His hands were clasped in his lap. Nervous. Human. "I couldn't sleep last night," he said. "I kept thinking about everything I should have said. Everything I should have done differently. 27 years of regrets lined up in my head like soldiers." What's the point of regrets? None, except that they remind us we're capable of change. Mary looked at him, really looked, at the lines around his eyes, at the gray in his hair, at the sadness that seemed woven into every feature. "Why now?" she asked. "After all these years, why did you finally step out of the shadows?" Douglas was quiet for a long moment. "Because I watched a man call my daughter worthless. I watched him humiliate her in front of everyone she knew. And I realized that all my protection, all my watching from afar, hadn't kept you safe at all. It had just kept me comfortable. You couldn't have stopped Preston." "No, but I could have been there. I could have been someone you could call, someone you could lean on. Instead, you faced him alone." Mary thought about the baby shower, about standing in that room with 40 people staring, about having no one to turn to except Bridget. "I wasn't entirely alone," she said. "You should have had a father in your corner. You should have always had that." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with truth. "I want to start over," Douglas said. "I know I can't erase 27 years. I know I can't make up for everything I missed, but I want to try, if you'll let me." Mary touched her belly. The baby kicked. A strong, definite movement. "The board meeting is tomorrow," she said. "Preston will be there?" "Yes." "And you're going to tell him? About me? About who I am?" "Only if you want me to." Mary thought about it. About Preston walking into that boardroom, expecting a promotion. About his face when he learned the truth. "I don't want to be there," she said. "I don't need to watch him fall." "Then you won't be there. But I want him to know. I want him to understand exactly what he threw away." Douglas nodded slowly. "Then he'll know." They sat in silence for a while, father and daughter, learning how to be in the same room together. "There's something else," Douglas said. "Something I should have told you yesterday." "More secrets?" "One more. The last one." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, old, yellowed, addressed in handwriting Mary didn't recognize. "Your grandmother wrote this before she died. She asked me to give it to you when you were ready." Mary took the envelope. Her hands trembled slightly. She knew about me? She loved you. Every photo I took, every report I received, I shared with her. You were the light of her final years. Mary opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in elegant cursive. My dearest Meredith, I have never met you, but I know you. I know your smile from photographs and your voice from recordings your father plays for me. I know your art from the paintings I've bought anonymously and hung in my bedroom. I know your heart from the choices you make. You are strong, stronger than you know, stronger than anyone has given you credit for. The world will try to make you small. People will try to define you by what you lack instead of what you have. Don't let them. You are not what anyone else says you are. You are what you choose to be. I wish I could have held you. I wish I could have told you this in person. But since I cannot, please accept these words as my final gift. You are loved. You have always been loved, and you will always be worthy of love. Your grandmother, Eleanor. Mary read the letter 3 times. By the 3rd time, she couldn't see the words through her tears. Eleanor, she whispered. I didn't know her name was Eleanor. She was the strongest woman I've ever known, until I met you. Mary looked at Douglas, at this stranger, who was also her father, at this man who had done everything wrong and was trying desperately to do something right. I'm going to name the baby Eleanor, she said. Douglas's face crumpled. For the first time, Mary saw him cry. She would have loved that, he managed. They sat together in the hospital room as the sun rose higher and the city came to life outside the window. Father and daughter, beginning again. The Harrington Global Boardroom occupied the entire 47th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Manhattan that most people only saw in movies. A polished mahogany table stretched 30 feet from end to end. Leather chairs lined both sides, each one worth more than a year of Mary's former salary. Preston Weston entered the room with Sloane Fairfax on his arm. He was smiling, confident, certain that today was the beginning of his ascension. His mother had secured him a seat on the board. His divorce would be finalized within weeks. Everything was falling into place. Good morning, he said to the assembled executives. Beautiful day for a board meeting. No one smiled back. Preston noticed the tension in the room, the sidelong glances, the way people avoided meeting his eyes. Is something wrong? He asked. That's when he saw the man at the head of the table. Douglas Harrington sat in the chairman's seat, a position that had been empty for years. The founder of the company had become a myth, a legend, a name on the building that no one expected to see in the flesh. Mr. Weston, Douglas said. His voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that made powerful men lean forward to listen. Please, have a seat. Preston sat. Sloane settled beside him. Her hand found his under the table. Thank you all for coming, Douglas began. I've called this meeting to announce significant changes in the company's leadership. Preston leaned forward. This was it, the announcement of his promotion. Effective immediately, Douglas continued, I am resuming active leadership of Harrington Global Industries. I will be reviewing every aspect of our operations, starting with personnel. The room went silent. Douglas turned his gaze directly to Preston. Mr. Weston, I understand congratulations are in order. You're soon to be a free man. Preston blinked. Yes. My divorce will be finalized shortly. I see. And the child? Your wife is 8 months pregnant, I believe. What are your intentions regarding custody? That's a private matter. I don't see what it has to do with company business. Then allow me to explain. Douglas stood. He walked to the windows and looked out at the city below. 27 years ago, I made a decision that I've regretted every day since. I walked away from someone I loved to protect her. I thought distance would keep her safe. Instead, it just left her vulnerable. Preston shifted in his seat. He didn't understand where this was going. That woman raised our daughter alone, Douglas continued. She worked double shifts as a waitress. She sacrificed everything so her child could have a normal life. And that child grew up to be brilliant and talented and kind. Sir, I'm not sure what this has to do with... That child's name is Meredith Callahan. The room went absolutely still. Preston's face drained of color. The woman you married, Douglas said, turning from the window, is my daughter. The baby she's carrying is my grandchild. The woman you publicly humiliated and called nobody at her own baby shower. Sloane's hand dropped from Preston's under the table. That's impossible, Preston stammered. She's nothing. Her mother is a waitress. She worked at a gallery. Yes, because I wanted her to have a normal life, because I thought staying away would protect her. Instead, I just made it easier for men like you to hurt her. Douglas walked slowly back to the head of the table, each step deliberate, each word measured. I've reviewed your performance records, Mr. Weston. The accounts you've claimed credit for were managed by junior staff. The innovations you presented were copied from competitors. And the company resources you've been billing to client entertainment have been going to Miss Fairfax's credit card. Murmurs rippled through the room. Board members exchanged glances. That's not true, Preston said. His voice cracked. My family has been with this company for 3 generations. Your grandfather was a good man. He would be ashamed. Preston stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. You can't do this. I'll sue. My lawyers... Your lawyers work for firms that I own. Your country club membership is at a property I hold. Your mother's charity benefits from a foundation I fund. There is nothing in your life that I don't control. The words landed like blows. Preston looked around the room for support, for anyone who might stand with him, but every face was turned away. Even Sloane was edging her chair back, putting distance between herself and the man she had planned to marry. You have a choice, Mr. Weston, Douglas said. Sign these documents, relinquishing any claim to custody of my grandchild and agreeing to a divorce settlement that's actually fair. Resign quietly, and perhaps you'll be able to find employment somewhere that doesn't require a background check. He slid a folder across the table. Or refuse. And I'll ensure every firm on Wall Street knows exactly what kind of man you are. The theft, the fraud, the abuse of your wife, all of it public record. Preston's hands shook as he reached for the folder. He opened it, read the first page, then the second. This says she gets half of everything I own. You stole 3 years of her life. Half seems generous. I won't sign this. Then don't. But know this. I will spend every dollar I have and every minute of my remaining life making sure you never hurt anyone again. That is a promise. The room waited. Preston looked at the documents, at the witnesses assembled around the table, at the man who had built an empire and was now using it to protect his daughter. He thought about fighting, about lawyers and courts, and dragging this out for years. Then he thought about what Douglas Harrington could do with unlimited resources and unlimited motivation. Preston signed. The pen scratched against paper. 3 signatures, initials on every page. A surrender that felt like drowning. Preston, Sloane whispered. How could you not know? Preston looked at her, at this woman who had promised to help him climb higher, at the future that had evaporated in the last 5 minutes. How was I supposed to know? He said. She worked at a gallery. Her mother's a waitress. Douglas Harrington smiled. It was not a kind smile. Yes, and she's worth more than everyone in this room combined. Not because of my money, because of who she is. He collected the signed documents and tucked them into his briefcase. This meeting is adjourned. Mr. Weston, security will escort you to collect your personal items. You have 1 hour. Preston stood on unsteady legs. The board members parted to let him pass, none of them meeting his eyes. At the door, he turned back. "Tell her," he said. "Tell Meredith. Tell her I'm sorry." Douglas's expression didn't change. "Tell her yourself, if she'll listen." Preston walked out of the boardroom. The elevator doors closed behind him. And just like that, 3 years of marriage ended with a signature and a security escort. Mary wasn't at the board meeting. She was in her mother's apartment, sitting by the window, watching the city go about its business. Kate was making tea, the familiar ritual, the clink of cups, the smell of chamomile. "He's probably finding out right now," Mary said. "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. I thought I would feel vindicated. Triumphant. Instead, I just feel tired." Kate brought her a cup and sat beside her. "That's because you're not a vengeful person. You never were." "Sometimes I wish I could be." "No, you don't. Revenge is a heavy thing to carry. Trust me." They sat in comfortable silence, mother and daughter, the way they had been before Preston, before Douglas, before everything got complicated. "What happens now?" Kate asked. Mary touched her belly. The baby kicked. "Now I have a child. I build a life. I figure out who I am without a husband telling me who I should be." "And your father?" Mary thought about Douglas, about the brownstone full of photographs, about the letter from a grandmother she never knew. "We'll see, one day at a time." Kate nodded. She didn't push. The tea grew cold. The sun moved across the sky, and somewhere across the city, Preston Weston was cleaning out his desk, finally understanding that the woman he had called nobody was the most important person in the room. The contractions started, for real, at 4 in the morning. Mary woke to a wave of pain that was nothing like the false labor before. This was urgent, demanding, real. "Mom?" she called. Kate appeared in the doorway within seconds. She had been sleeping on the couch, too worried to go to her own bedroom. "It's time," Mary gasped. "The baby's coming." "I'll call an ambulance." "No time. Call a taxi." They made it to the hospital in 17 minutes. Kate counted every second. The driver ran every light and asked if they wanted him to wait. "No," Kate said. "This is going to take a while." The hospital staff moved with practiced efficiency. Mary was wheeled into a delivery room. Monitors were attached. The baby's heartbeat filled the space. "You're at 7 centimeters, the doctor said. "This baby is in a hurry." Mary grabbed her mother's hand. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know, baby, but you're the strongest person I know. You can do this." The hours blurred together. Pain, breathing, pushing, more pain. Kate held one hand. Bridget arrived at some point and held the other, the two women who loved Mary most, flanking her through the hardest work of her life. "One more push," the doctor said. "One more, and you'll meet your daughter." Mary pushed. Everything she had, everything she was. And then, a cry. A small, perfect, miraculous cry. Eleanor Kate Callahan entered the world at 7 pounds, 4 ounces. She had 10 fingers and 10 toes and a scream that could probably be heard 3 floors up. The nurses placed her on Mary's chest. Warm, alive, real. "Hello, Eleanor," Mary whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm your mom, and I'm going to make sure you know how much you matter." Eleanor blinked. Her eyes were unfocused, seeing nothing clearly, but somehow she seemed to look right at her mother. In that moment, everything that had happened faded away. Preston, the divorce, the humiliation, the secrets and lies and pain, all of it was still there, would still need to be dealt with, but right now, in this moment, none of it mattered. There was only this: a mother, a daughter, a beginning. Kate was crying. Bridget was crying. Even the nurse, who had seen hundreds of births, was wiping her eyes. "She's beautiful," Kate said. "She looks just like you did." "She looks like herself," Mary corrected. "She's going to be whoever she wants to be." Hours later, after the tests and the checkups and the endless paperwork, Mary lay in her hospital bed, with Eleanor sleeping in her arms. There was a soft knock at the door. Douglas Harrington stood in the doorway. He looked uncertain in a way Mary had never seen before. Vulnerable, human. "May I come in?" he asked. Mary nodded. Douglas approached the bed slowly. His eyes never left the baby. Eleanor, named for the grandmother she would never meet. "May I?" He gestured toward the baby. Mary hesitated. Then she placed Eleanor in her father's arms. Douglas held his granddaughter with the care of someone handling something infinitely precious. Tears streamed down his cheeks. He made no move to hide them. "She looks just like you did," he whispered. "When you were born." "You were there?" "For 1 hour, the best hour of my life, until now." Mary watched her father hold her daughter. 2 generations. 2 chances to get it right. "I was so afraid," Douglas said. "When you were born, afraid of the enemies who wanted to hurt you, afraid of being a bad father, afraid that staying would put you in danger and leaving would destroy you. You made a choice. The wrong one. I know that now." "Maybe," Mary said, "or maybe we just have to make the best of the choices we've made." Douglas looked up. His eyes met hers. "Will you give me a chance? To be the grandfather I should have been as a father?" Mary thought about it. About all the years lost, about the photographs on his walls, and the money in the bank, and the letter from a grandmother she never knew. "1 chance," she said. "That's all any of us get." Douglas nodded. He looked back at Eleanor. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for giving me a second chance." Eleanor stirred. Her tiny hand reached up and grasped Douglas's finger, and the man who controlled empires, who could buy and sell countries on a whim, dissolved into tears at the touch of his granddaughter's hand. That night, Mary dreamed. She dreamed of Eleanor as a little girl, running through a park, laughing, free. She dreamed of herself painting again. Canvas after canvas filled with color and light. She dreamed of a house somewhere, not a penthouse or a mansion, just a home, a place where she belonged. When she woke, Eleanor was nursing. The sunrise was painting the sky pink and gold. And for the first time in months, Mary felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. 3 months passed. Mary stood in the kitchen of her new apartment, warming a bottle, while Eleanor fussed in the bassinet. The apartment was small but bright. Yellow walls, white curtains. The smell of paint still lingering from the murals Mary had created in the nursery. She had bought the apartment herself, not with Douglas's money, not with the settlement from Preston, with the savings from selling 3 paintings to a gallery that had discovered her work and wanted more. The money in the bank account Douglas had set up remained untouched. Mary wasn't sure what she would do with it. College fund for Eleanor, maybe, or charity, or just let it sit until she figured out who she wanted to be. Eleanor's cries intensified. Mary scooped her up and settled into the rocking chair by the window. "Shh, baby girl, breakfast is coming." The bottle was warm now. Eleanor latched on with the single-minded determination she applied to everything. This baby knew what she wanted. Mary watched her daughter eat, the tiny fingers grasping the bottle, the serious expression of concentration, the way her eyelids fluttered as she relaxed into the rhythm. "I made this perfect, demanding, miraculous person. No matter what else happens, I made this." The doorbell rang. Mary checked the peephole, as she had learned to do. On the other side stood Sloane Fairfax. Mary opened the door. "Why are you here?" she asked. Sloane looked different than she had at the board meeting, smaller somehow, less polished. She was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual designer dresses. "Because I owe you an apology," Sloane said, "and a warning." Mary hesitated. Then she stepped aside to let Sloane in. They sat in the small living room. Eleanor finished her bottle and promptly fell asleep. The silence stretched between two women who should have been enemies. "I didn't know," Sloane finally said, "about who you were, about your father, about any of it." "Would it have mattered?" Sloane considered the question. "I want to say yes. I want to say I wouldn't have gotten involved with a married man if I'd known the truth. But honestly, I'm not sure. At least you're honest. I'm trying to be. It's new for me." Sloane looked at Eleanor, sleeping in Mary's arms. Her expression softened. "She's beautiful. Thank you. Preston used me. You know that, right? The same way he used you. I was supposed to help him climb. When his climb ended, so did his interest." "I'm sorry." Sloane laughed bitterly. "Don't be. I knew what I was doing. I just thought I was smarter than I was." She pulled an envelope from her purse. "I came to warn you. Preston is telling everyone you trapped him. That you knew about the money all along. That you engineered the whole thing. Let him talk. You're not going to fight back?" Mary looked at her daughter, at this tiny person who would grow up watching how her mother handled adversity. "I have a daughter to raise, a career to rebuild, a life to live. I don't have time to manage his reputation." Sloane stared at her. At this woman she had dismissed as weak. At this woman who was holding a baby and choosing peace over war. "You're stronger than any of us," Sloane said. "No, I just finally stopped letting other people define my strength." Sloane stood to leave. At the door she paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For all of it." "I know." Sloane left. The door closed. And Mary was alone with her daughter, and the quiet knowledge that she had chosen grace over revenge. Douglas came to visit every Saturday. He arrived at 10 in the morning and stayed until noon. No more, no less. They were building something slowly, and neither of them wanted to rush. Today he brought a stuffed elephant for Eleanor and a photograph for Mary. "I found this in my mother's things," he said. "I thought you should have it." The photograph showed a young woman holding a baby. The woman was maybe 25, with dark hair and kind eyes. The baby was squinting against the sun, one tiny fist raised. "That's you," Douglas said. "The day you were born. Your grandmother insisted on taking that picture before I left." Mary touched the photograph. Her grandmother, the woman whose letter had helped her understand her own worth. "Thank you. I have more. Albums full. If you ever want to see them, maybe someday." They spent the morning, as they always did, Douglas holding Eleanor, while Mary made tea, stories about his childhood and his company, and the grandmother Mary had never known. Small steps towards something neither of them could quite name yet. At noon, Douglas stood to leave. "Same time next week?" he asked. "Same time next week." He kissed Eleanor's forehead. She grabbed his finger, the way she always did, and he smiled the way he always smiled, like someone who had been handed the world and couldn't believe his luck. "Goodbye, sweetheart," he whispered to Eleanor. Then, to Mary, "Goodbye. I'm proud of you." "I know." She watched him walk down the hallway to the elevator. This man who had built empires. This man who had made terrible mistakes and was trying, every week, to do better. Maybe that was all any of us could do. Bridget came over with wine and baby clothes. They sat on Mary's couch while Eleanor slept, drinking Chardonnay and talking about nothing important. "You look good," Bridget said. "Like, actually good, not just surviving good." I feel good. For the first time in years, actually. No more panic attacks about money? The gallery wants 3 more paintings. They're paying well. No more nightmares about Preston? Haven't dreamed about him in weeks. Bridget raised her glass. To new chapters. To new chapters. They clinked glasses. You know, Bridget said, I always knew you were going to be okay, even when you didn't know it. How? Because you survived before Preston. You were happy before he came along. He didn't give you anything you didn't already have. He just made you forget you had it. Mary thought about that. About the woman she had been before 3 years of marriage, convinced her she was less than. I used to think I needed someone to complete me. A husband, a father, someone to tell me I was enough. But Eleanor doesn't look at me and see nobody. She sees her whole world. I spent 30 years waiting for someone to choose me, Mary said. Now I choose myself. Every day. Over and over. Bridget smiled. That's my girl. 1 year later, the gallery opened. Mary stood in the center of the space she had built from nothing. White walls, perfect lighting, her paintings covering every surface. The theme was becoming. Portraits of women in transition, women crying, women fighting, women starting over, women becoming. The centerpiece was a self-portrait. Mary, 8 months pregnant, walking through rain toward a light she couldn't quite see. The woman in the painting had been broken, but she was moving forward anyway. The title was Walking Towards. Eleanor toddled across the gallery floor, her grandmother holding her hand. Kate had quit the diner 6 months ago. She worked part-time at a community art center now, teaching watercolors to seniors. She looked younger than she had in years. Douglas stood in the back of the room, not needing to be in front. He had funded nothing, given no advice, pulled no strings. This was Mary's achievement, and he was simply there to witness it. Bridget was there too, with wine she claimed was for moral support. She had already declared 3 paintings her favorites and was trying to convince Mary to give her a discount. I discovered you, Bridget said, before you were famous. I deserve a friends and family rate. You're already getting the friends and family rate. Then I deserve a better one. The gallery filled with people, art critics, collectors, strangers who had seen the announcement and wanted to discover something new. They moved through the space slowly, studying each painting. Some took notes, some took pictures, some simply stood and looked, lost in whatever the art made them feel. Mary watched them from near the door, these strangers engaging with work she had created from pain and hope and everything in between. It's wonderful, said a woman beside her, gray hair, expensive coat, the kind of person who bought art, not just looked at it. You have a remarkable eye. Thank you. This one especially. The woman gestured to Walking Towards. It feels like a promise, like the artist is saying, we can survive anything if we just keep moving. That's exactly what she's saying. The woman smiled and moved on. Mary touched the frame of her self-portrait. The woman in the painting had been lost, afraid, alone, but she had kept walking, and now she was here. The door opened again. Mary turned, expecting another art lover or critic. Preston Weston walked in. He looked different, smaller somehow, older. The confidence that had once seemed so attractive now looked hollow, empty. The room noticed. Conversations paused, glances exchanged. Kate stepped forward, but Mary shook her head. It's okay, Mom. I'll handle this. She walked toward Preston, slowly, deliberately, the way she had learned to walk when she stopped trying to be invisible. Why are you here? She asked. I saw the announcement. I wanted to see what you made. And? It's beautiful. All of it. They stood face to face, ex-husband and ex-wife. Two people who had once promised forever and delivered something far less. I made a mistake, Preston said. Yes, you did. I didn't know. If I had known. If you had known I had money, you would have stayed. He couldn't answer. They both knew the truth. That's the difference between us, Preston. I didn't love you for what you could give me. I loved you for who I thought you were. And you loved me for what you thought you could take. She turned away, started walking back toward her family. He reached for her arm. Meredith, wait. She stopped, turned. Don't touch me. I just wanted to. To what? Apologize? Make yourself feel better? Preston, I spent 3 years disappearing so you could feel bigger. I'm done doing that. Eleanor toddled over. She looked up at Preston with the curious gaze of a child who didn't recognize the stranger before her. Then she walked past him and reached for her mother. Mary picked up her daughter. This is Eleanor, and she will never question whether she's enough. She walked away. Preston stood alone in a room full of people who saw him clearly now. The man who had called her nobody, standing in a gallery full of proof that she was anything but. The gallery closed at 9. Mary stood on the balcony outside, looking at the city lights. Eleanor was asleep inside, worn out from all the excitement. Kate was cleaning up. Bridget was trying to convince Douglas that she deserved a painting as a gift for being such a good friend. Douglas stepped onto the balcony. Proud of you, he said. For the gallery? For all of it. For who you've become. Mary smiled. I'm still becoming. That's the secret, isn't it? You never stop. Douglas looked at her, at this daughter he had watched from shadows for almost 3 decades, at this woman who had survived everything life had thrown at her and emerged stronger. Your grandmother would have loved this, he said. The gallery, the paintings, you. I wish I could have met her. You did, in a way. She left pieces of herself in that letter, in the money she set aside for you, in the stories I've told Eleanor. You've been telling Eleanor stories? Every Saturday, while you make tea, I tell her about her great-grandmother, about the woman who loved her before she was born. Mary felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. Thank you. For what? For being here? For trying? For not giving up? Douglas put his arm around her, hesitant, gentle, the first time they had touched since she was an infant. I gave up once, he said. I'm not making that mistake again. They stood together, father and daughter, watching the city that had held so much pain and was now holding so much promise. What happens now? Douglas asked. Mary thought about it. Now I raise my daughter. I paint. I build a life that's mine. And maybe, eventually, I figure out what to do with all that money you keep insisting belongs to me. College fund for Eleanor. Maybe, or maybe something bigger, a foundation, a scholarship program for women starting over, something that helps other people the way I wish someone had helped me. Douglas smiled. Your grandmother would have loved that. I know. The city sparkled below them, millions of lives in motion, millions of stories unfolding. Mary thought about the woman she had been a year ago, standing in that baby shower, being called nobody, feeling her world collapse around her. That woman had been broken. This woman was whole, not because of the money, not because of the gallery, not because of Douglas or Kate or Bridget or even Eleanor, because she had finally understood the truth. They called me a nobody, a waitress's daughter, a woman without value, but I carried a whole person inside me. I survived a betrayal that could have broken me. I rebuilt everything from nothing. And I did it not because of money, not because of power, but because I finally understood. My worth was never theirs to determine. She looked at Douglas. I should go check on Eleanor. I'll help Kate finish cleaning up. They went back inside together, father and daughter, learning, still, how to be a family. Later that night, after everyone had gone, Mary sat in Eleanor's nursery. The baby was sleeping. Her tiny chest rose and fell with each breath. Her hands curled into fists, even in sleep, ready to fight for whatever she wanted. Mary touched her daughter's cheek. Soft, warm, perfect. "Eleanor," she whispered, "let me tell you a story." The baby stirred but didn't wake. Once upon a time, there was a woman who didn't know who she was. She let other people tell her what she was worth. She made herself small so others could feel big, and she thought that was love. Eleanor's breathing stayed steady, peaceful. But then she had a daughter, and everything became clear, because when she looked at that daughter, she didn't see someone who needed to be perfect. She saw someone who was already enough, just by existing, just by being. Mary leaned down and kissed Eleanor's forehead. "You are enough, baby girl. You were enough before you were born. You'll be enough every day of your life. No one gets to tell you otherwise. Not ever." She stood and walked to the window. The city was quiet now. Most of the lights had gone dark. But somewhere out there, women were lying awake, wondering if they were enough, wondering if they deserved better, wondering if they were strong enough to start over. Mary had been one of them, and now she wasn't. Not because anything had changed about her, not because money had fallen from the sky, not because a fairy godfather had appeared to rescue her, because she had chosen herself every day, over and over, one small decision at a time. The gallery lights were off now, but inside Mary, something was glowing brighter than ever before. She was nobody's victim anymore. She was Eleanor's mother, and that was enough. It would always be enough. If this story touched your heart, if Meredith's journey reminded you of your own strength, I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Your words might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today. And if you want more stories like this, stories about resilience, justice, and the quiet power of women who refuse to stay broken, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We release new stories every week. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes a story is the reminder we need that we are not alone. Thank you for listening until the end. You are the reason we create these stories. Final disclaimer. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every character, every scene, and every emotional moment was crafted with intention to entertain, to inspire, and to remind you that your story matters too. Until next time, remember, you are not nobody. You never were.